creating inner equations, I mean creating patterns of behavior based on a cause and effect relationship, is part of our, let's say, life learning process. For those of us who have children, I think it's a bit easier to understand how this process functions, and understanding the relationship with our own children will help us understand why our Father, why God Himself chooses to create in our life experiences all the time situations out of which we do learn these kind of conclusions which we tend to repeat all the time. I will try to choose some examples in order to better understand what we are speaking about. For example, when you have a 3-year-old child, you learn him to stay far from the oven. You learn him that fire or excessive heat might hurt him, and that he or she might get burned. But then later, when the child is, 13, 14, you might take the decision that it is the proper time to learn him or her to prepare his or her own food, or to heat a certain dish that you have already prepared, and so on. So then you come back to the same inner equation, to the same behavior pattern that you created a few years ago, and you try modify this inner pattern for the child to be able to use the heat, the oven, the fire, in order to be a useful tool to prepare the food. So although you told to the child that he shouldn't approach the oven and that he should stay far from the fire, you come back later and you tell him the opposite in order to use the oven or the fire as a tool. So it's difficult for the being to change one acquired behavior in another one. Let's take another useful example. Maybe that you have a life script in which one day you have a great amount of money. You either inherited this money, or maybe you managed to put aside some money and you created a nice bank account. And you decide to invest all this great amount of money in a new business. And unfortunately, you lose everything. You are bankrupt, and at the end of this experience, you reach the conclusion that it is better to be happy with what you have already. It is better not to risk anything, anytime, and it's better to simply use the money for bad days, let's say, to keep them as an economy and not to risk in a business. And you might be the same spirit, and in another life on earth choose a completely different experience in which you do have the same amount of money. You decide to create a new project, and everything goes on wonderfully, and you become very happy, and you become even richer, and you reach the conclusion that if you risk, if you take a chance, if you decide to do something courageous and to be ambitious, you will manage to be successful in life. So you are the same spirit, but you do reach two different, completely different, even opposite life conclusions, and you thus create two different inner equations. So the cause and effect relationship are opposite in the two mentioned situations. So the important question that arises now is, what's the best way to act when you have money? Is there a right or wrong? Is there a good or evil in the world? The sheer truth is that this dual way of thinking in black and white, good and evil, takes place only on earth. But in the higher realms, where our life scripts are born, are created, are conceived, and where our higher self and our divinity and the archangels and all the higher beings live, these ideas of separation and this kind of seeing the things in black and white does not exist. So our Father uses, no matter what life experiences, no matter what situation, in order to learn us something, in order to make us evolve, in order to broaden our mind and especially our soul and our heart. So there is no right or wrong. But what it is important as a therapist is that you will meet all the time inner equations in a client. And that each life experiences and each trauma, of course, creates very strong inner equations that we tend to repeat times and times again, endlessly, like an absolute truth, like a conclusion that can never be changed. And this is what we are working on as therapists. When a client has a limitative conclusion that makes him unhappy or makes her unhappy, when he or she feels blocked, trapped in a way of thinking, in a pattern of behavior that limits his or her possibility to live experiences that might make him or her happy, you must, of course, try to see which is the cause of this pattern of behavior. You must go back, either in the current life or in a past life, to see what really happened at the zero moment, so when this pattern was born, to understand the situation, to help the client heal that experience, and to let that conclusion and that inner equation dissolve, so that he or she can act freely without keeping on repeating endlessly the same inner equation. Because, as I have said, in God's word there is really no right or wrong. There are only experiences that do help a lot our soul grow.